Sorry for the delay, guys. I was supposed to be on holidays, but they needed extra coverage, so I pushed my holidays back a week. Anyway, some calls are pretty standard, meaning you can easily walk your distressed caller through the steps of the emergency before the police arrive. Unfortunately, they don't all end the way that you want them to, though. Home invasions, they're pretty common. Or the start of a home invasion is, at least. People often call, paranoid that someone may be in or around their house, and that leads to a pretty standard call. Lock all doors, or hide somewhere where you can't be seen and just wait for the police. This call came in shortly after 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night.
911, what's your emergency? Hi. There's someone at our door and they won't leave.
A man answered.
Okay, what's your name? Can you tell me what happened? Yeah, sure. My name's Kevin and I'm with my wife Sherry. I woke up because my wife said that she heard someone at our door while she was reading, and I checked and there's a man there. I told him to leave, but he won't. It's been about 15 minutes now too, and he's still just standing there.
He sounded panicked.
Okay, Kevin, I'm sending someone over right now. Did the man say anything to you? Yeah, he did say something, but I couldn't hear it through the door. Sorry. My wife and I, we're super freaked out right now. Yeah, that's understandable. Where are you both right now? Can you see him? No, I can't see him. We're in the bedroom down the hall. Can you check to see if he's still there? Yeah, okay. 1 second. Hey, honey, stay here. I'll be right back, okay?
He talked to his wife, and I heard her acknowledge that he was leaving. He made his way to the front door.
Hey, I can't see him anywhere. Do you think he left? That's good, right?
He sounded relieved.
Yeah, that is good, but we're just going to stay on the line together until the police arrive, okay? Why? If he's gone, then you can call the police off, right? Well, we don't know if he's actually gone, right? I'm just ensuring yours and your wife's safety, okay? Oh, yeah. True, I suppose. Kevin, I'm going to ask you to go around and check all the doors and the windows to make sure they're locked, okay? I just want to make sure that you're both safe and secure. Sure. I'll go check them now, okay?
I heard him walk about his house and then check on his wife, asking if the windows were locked. He walked around a bit more before he spoke again.
Hey, what do I do if my deck door is unlocked?
His breathing increased as he started to worry.
Well, is there any sign that someone may have come through there? Or is there any way someone could get onto your deck? Yeah. We have stairs to our deck. I mean, it doesn't really look like anyone came in, but I don't know. The door wasn't latched shut. What do I do? What if he's inside? We're not going to panic just yet, okay? We don't even know if he's in the house or if he actually left or not. I just want you to lock the patio door and go back to your wife. I want you guys to stay in that room until the police get there, okay? Okay, I'll do that now.
He walked back to where his wife was, and his breathing got ragged.
Honey?
He sounded worried.
Kevin, are you alright? What's wrong? Oh, fuck. I don't know where she is. She was right here when I left to check. Oh, fuck. Please, don't. Kevin, what's going on? The man is in here. He's right here. He's got my wife and a gun. Honey, are you okay? Please, just let her go, please.
He was pleading with the intruder. There was a foreign voice echoing into the phone. The intruder was yelling.
Kevin, what is he saying? I,
He started to speak, but the man cut him off, and unfortunately, I could no longer hear.
Listen, I don't understand what you're saying. You have to believe me. No, please. Don't hurt my wife, okay?
I could tell that he was trying to be as calm as possible while also pleading. At this point, I wasn't sure what to do, but I had to do something.
Offer him the phone, okay?
I said quickly, hoping to take control of the situation.
Listen, someone wants to talk to you, okay?
Kevin said.
Hello? Who's there?
A minute later, the intruder's voice came over the phone. His voice was much deeper than Kevin's.
Sir, my name is Ethan and I'm dispatch. Can you tell me what's going on?
I know who they are and what they've done to me.
He raised his voice and I heard Sherry whimper.
What do you mean? What have they done?
They thought wrong.
He whispered this time.
Listen, you don't want to hurt them. They didn't do anything to you.
He shuffled and I heard Sherry whimper again.
They thought I would forget, but I didn't.
He was yelling into the phone while I heard the sound of the phone hitting something between every few words. I suspected it was his head. Kevin said something to the intruder that was unintelligible because I just couldn't hear it.
I am not fucking crazy!
The intruder yelled into the phone.
You're not crazy, okay? The police are almost there. They can help you.
I tried to sound reassuring, despite being scared for Kevin and Sherry.
No! Something needs to happen now!
His rage was getting more intense the longer we spoke.
Listen, the police are almost there. Less than a minute now, okay?
No!
His voice bellowed through the phone, followed by 3 gunshots.
Sir, what happened?
I mustered up enough strength to ask.
They won't hurt anybody else now.
That was the last thing that he said before hanging up. When the police arrived on the scene, the man surrendered his weapon and was arrested. Kevin was shot twice and Sherry once. Kevin was dead upon police arrival, and Sherry died later that evening in the ICU. A friend of mine who was dispatched that night let me in on a few details of the incident. The intruder was a severely mentally ill man who had spent his entire childhood being sexually assaulted and abused by his father and neglected by his mother, growing up in the very home that Kevin and Sherry owned. The man was delusional and mistook Kevin and Sherry as his mother and father. I'm often asked which calls bother me the most. Some dispatchers have trouble with suicide, and others have trouble with domestic violence and the like. I, however, have trouble with calls that involve rape or drug overdoses, due to past experiences in my life, that is. This one call, in particular, it made me snap to the point of suspension, actually. I was suspended for 4 weeks after this incident, and rightfully so. Had I not explained myself or had any prior incidences, I would have been fired on the spot. There is usually no tolerance for the type of behavior that I displayed that night. I was unprofessional, and no matter the situation I'm dealing with, I'm supposed to be unbiased. However, I just couldn't in this situation. A little backstory. When my girlfriend was 18 years old, This was a few months before we had initially gotten together. She had been drugged with the date rape drug at some college party. Thankfully, she was only molested and not raped, due to the fact that a friend had found her. But since then, a part of me has always been bitter and resentful towards anyone who could commit such an act. Anyway, this call was placed just after 1 a.m. on a Friday night.
911, what's your emergency? Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. We fucked up really fucking bad. Fuck's sake. I'm at a party at...
I could hear music blasting in the background as a young man yelled over the phone to me. I was on speaker, and there were other voices, but I couldn't make out what they were saying in the midst of all the music.
Can you tell me your name? What happened? I can barely hear you. Oh, fuck. Oh, it's Tanner. I think she's having a seizure and puking or something. I didn't know, I swear.
He was beginning to sob into the phone at this point.
Okay, Tanner, I need you to turn her on her side and put something under her head, okay? If she's seizing, she might choke on her vomit. So you need to keep her turned over and make sure that her mouth stays open, okay? Don't hold her down, though. You might hurt her.
I sent out dispatch at this point.
Cole, are you fucking deaf? She just said not to hold her down. Stop holding her fucking legs, dude.
He was yelling over to someone else.
Tanner, can you tell me what happened? And who are you with? Did you find her like that? No. Fuck. We did this to her. Shit. It's me, Cole, and Mike. Is she going to die? She's not stopping. Okay, I just need you to keep her on her side. What exactly happened?
He didn't need to tell me what was happening for me to realize what was going on.
We put some stuff in her drink, okay? Some guy gave it and said that it works. We didn't know it would end like this. Fuck. We fucked up, man. So fucking bad.
He began to sob into the phone again, and the rational person inside of me completely disappeared. The anger inside me started to build.
Well, do you know what it is that you gave her? How long has she been seizing? Why would you drug her? It's been a few minutes. She kind of stops for a bit and then starts again. I don't know what we gave her. I didn't ask the guy. We just wanted to have a good time with her, you know? I didn't think... No, you didn't think.
I practically spat the words out.
I can't be certain, but it sounds like she's having an overdose. How much did you put in her drink? It was in a little bag, and I dumped it in. I don't know how much we gave to her. You shouldn't have given her anything in the first place. The police and ambulance are on their way. Are we going to go to jail for this? It wasn't like we wanted this to happen. It was a mistake. What if she fucking dies? Let's hope she doesn't. Either way, it isn't looking good for any of you. Let's focus on her. Is she still seizing?
The bitterness in my voice was present, despite knowing that I always had to be objective to the callers, no matter the situation.
No, she's not. Is that bad?
Now, I could barely hear him over the sound of the music in the background. It sounded like it was getting louder.
Is she breathing? I don't know. Well, you need to check that for me. If not, you need to start chest compressions, okay? You fucking check. This was your fucking idea.
Tanner yelled over to someone who was protesting the idea of checking her breathing. At this point, my own temper was rising.
Who cares who checks her breathing? Just fucking do it. If she dies, it's all on your hands.
I snapped through the phone.
Okay.
Tanner took a moment, mumbled something in the midst of sobbing, and broke down on the phone.
She's not fucking breathing. Did we fucking kill her? Holy shit.
I could hear him starting to do chest compressions on the girl. At this point, I was screaming obscenities at the young man on the other line, accusing them of murder and telling them that they were all going to rot in jail for murder. My supervisor at the time cut in immediately when she heard my commotion and then took over the call. Unfortunately, the girl did, in fact, die from an overdose. She was 16 years old. The 3 men involved in the incident were 19 years old, and they were charged with criminal negligence causing death. Their sentence was 4 years, with the eligibility of parole, seeing as though it was all their first offence. However, if you ask me, 4 years of imprisonment isn't enough for what they did to that poor girl. 2 of the 3 were released on good behaviour after serving 2 years of their sentence too. They, in turn, were shunned by most of the members of the city for what they did. I have no idea what they're doing now, and where they've ended up, but honestly, I couldn't care less. Maybe that makes me a bad person, but you know what? I'm willing to live with that. I journalize everything, and it's not common practice for a dispatcher to do so, particularly the calls that terrify or bother them the most. But it's my way of dealing with them. Being empathic has made doing my job 10 times harder than it should, and many people believe that if you're sensitive to other people's feelings, you shouldn't be in this field of work. However, I believe that I do well at my job because I try my best to relate to them, no matter how screwed up the situation might be. My experience with dispatching has been life-changing, in both the good and the bad. I've seen the horrors that plague even the smallest of cities. I couldn't even imagine the larger cities. Many people don't realize this, but there is a lot going on behind the scenes in all cities. A lot of bad things that happen don't always end up on the news or in the newspaper. There's a large portion of it that never sees the light of day, in fact. Could you imagine the uproar and the panic that would instill in people if all the terrible things that happened were to be released to the public, especially following specific days of the year? I've said it before and I'll say it again. Full moons are the worst. Every dispatcher that I've ever talked to has always agreed with me because, for some odd reason, people just lose their right state of mind on those days. It's as though the weirdest and the creepiest people on the planet decide to come out from wherever they're hiding and call in. This is by far the creepiest call that I've ever received. And to be honest, I'm still torn trying to decide whether or not it's just a bad prank. This call was made shortly after 4 a.m. on a Thursday, during a full moon.
911, what's your emergency? Hello? I need to make a confession.
A calm voice lulled over the line.
Okay, sir. What do you want to confess?
You would be surprised at how many people call to confess things that they've done, a lot of which are on the brink of suicide.
Before I tell you, you need to tell me about yourself.
I could hear a smile playing on his lips.
Sir, I'm not at the liberty to give out that kind of information. This is an emergency line. Unless you have an emergency or know of one, I'll have to disengage the call, okay?
He laughed on the other line for a split second, and then took a deep breath.
I do have a confession to make.
At this point, I was getting annoyed. This guy was clearly trying to play games.
Sir, does this confession relate to an emergency?
My voice was stern.
Yes. Well, can you tell me what it is then?
There was a long pause.
Well, there are 3 bodies in the cellar. One of a woman and the other young boys.
His voice lulled over the line once more. I lifted my hand from my station to get my supervisor's attention. She quickly connected to the call and started to listen in.
Dead bodies. Do you know what happened to them?
He laughed over the phone once more, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up.
Of course they're dead. And of course I know what happened to them. They've been dead for a little while now.
I waited for the system to triangulate the call. My own heart rate was off the charts now. In all my years of dispatching, I had never had someone confess something to this extent.
Did you kill these people?
I could hear the tremble in my own voice, and he laughed as he sensed my nervousness.
Yeah.
He was unbelievably calm, and it made me really uncomfortable.
And you've said that they've been dead for a while. I can transfer you over to the police station and they can take a statement from you if you wish. Well, yeah, we could do that. But what if I said that I had another victim here with me? One who's still alive, in fact.
My blood ran cold, and I looked over to my supervisor. My screens flashed, and she took over my computer, typing out the details of the dispatch. My job now was to ask as many questions as possible, and to get as much detail as I could from him.
Okay. Are you planning on hurting them? Not if someone makes it here in time.
His voice was stern now, and the almost joking tone he had was gone.
Where's your location? It's the old home off of... It doesn't have an address. Do you know the house? Yeah. A dispatch is being sent out right now, okay? Tell me about the victim. Well, he's a young man, and it looks like no one really misses him.
He chuckled a little and continued.
He's still alive. He's not awake, but he's alive. So, can I ask why you're doing this? Well, I needed to confess. It's been 5 years that I've kept it a secret. It was the right day and it was the right time.
He hung up right after he spoke, and I was just left staring at my screen, wondering what the hell had just happened. A friend of mine who answered the dispatch told me that when he and his partner showed up to the old house, there was no one there, but someone had definitely been living there. They said that they searched the premises and never found a single clue of decayed bodies where the man said he'd left them. They did, however, find a boy, no older than 16, who was fast asleep in the old house. He had run away from home and wanted to find shelter. He stated that he never heard anyone come into the house or had talked to anyone because he had just recently got there. Obviously, there was an investigation made, but nothing ever came of it. My friend who was dispatched believes that it might have been a bad prank that I got fooled by. I can't say for certain that I think it's true or not, but there's a part of me that wonders why someone would even pull such a prank if it was one. A part of me believes that it might have been someone who was severely mentally ill, and the full moon got to them, brought out their crazier, more irrational side. But who knows? The world is a weird place, and people are even weirder. This was definitely my strangest and creepiest call to date, though. I've been hesitant to post my more personal experiences, but I guess I'll divulge a little. There was a time in my life where I would have disclosed all the information you wanted to know about me. There was virtually no such thing as being too personal. During my first couple of years or so of dispatching, I was very open about my job and my life on social media and the like. By doing so, I made myself vulnerable, and I didn't even realize that until it was too late. My biggest mistake was thinking that the world wasn't a small place. But alas, the world is a very small place. And in the grand scheme of things, a city of just over 200,000 people is minuscule in comparison. This call came in around 8 p.m.
911, what's your emergency? Hello?
A woman was sobbing on the other line.
What is your emergency? Is there really a point to all of this?
There was a deep sadness in her voice.
To what, dear?
I softened my voice, ready to approach this type of call.
Life? Well, of course there is. Sometimes you just can't see it, though. But there is. It's there. How would you know? You wouldn't understand. I understand more than you think. Where are you right now? I want to get you some help. I'm in my apartment. Do you know where is? I do. I'm sending out the dispatch now, okay?
She started to cry once more.
If they don't make it in time?
Her voice was shaky as she spoke.
Cassie, why don't you talk to me until they get there? Listen, I'm not just going to tell some stranger my problems in the hopes that maybe he'll understand, okay? I don't even know your name. So telling you about my problems, it's just ridiculous. I'm ridiculous for thinking that this would even work.
There was a bit of an attitude in her voice. She was angry with me.
Well, my name's Ethan, so now you know who I am. I've been where you are many times, and I didn't know who to turn to. But you did. You called 911, hoping that someone would hear your cry for help. And guess what? It worked. I'm here, and I'm listening, and I care.
She laughed through her tears.
But you don't even know me. That's true. I might not know you, but I know that you're a good person. I'm not a good person. Trust me.
She practically spat the words out of her mouth.
You shouldn't be so hard on yourself. We all make mistakes, but that doesn't define us. Whatever you've done in the past, it's the past. Just think about your future, okay?
The conversation deepened, and she spoke to me about her problems, and I listened. I waited for the police to arrive before I told her that she could hang up. She thanked me and wished me the best. She told me that I saved her life and that I was a true hero. It was a great outcome overall. The call itself never really got to me, because why would it? It was a standard cry for help. I was used to dealing with people who were mentally ill, and sometimes just needed someone to relate to, or someone they could vent to. It was my job, and I did all that I could for her. Like I said, it was a great outcome. Or so I thought. Oh boy, I wish it ended there. I really do, because a part of me changed the moment the line fell silent without me even realizing it. So, it was about a week or so after that call that I got a friend request on Facebook. I didn't think anything of it, accepted the request and proceeded to ask if I knew the woman who added me. She said yes, and went on to explain that she was the woman that I had talked out of suicide a week earlier, and that she found me on Facebook to say thank you. I was a little uneasy, not because she wanted to say thanks, but how easily she found me on Facebook. Feeling uncomfortable, I told her that it was highly inappropriate to follow up with a caller, because the calls should never get that personal in the first place. So, for good measure, I asked her not to contact me again, and then I proceeded to block her. I thought my problems were solved. It had been nearly 3 months since the first incident, and nothing happened. I completely forgot about the incident with Cassie, and was merely moving on with my life. Until my girlfriend, Sarah, curiously asked if I knew a young woman by the name of Cassie. At first, I wasn't sure who she was talking about, but when she showed me a picture, I was shocked to see who it was. I was kind of annoyed at this point, because why would someone go through this much trouble to say thank you? They wouldn't, unless there was something wrong with them. I understood that to a certain extent, I saved her life, but this was a bit too much, especially for something that happened 3 months ago. Sarah, being as naive as she was at the time, assured me that she was just trying to be nice, so she decided to connect with her on Facebook, despite my telling her not to, and they quickly became friends. I saw a lot of Cassie during the time that they were friends. She would come over often, and every time she did, there was this feeling of uncertainty. There was just something about her, about the way that she spoke to me, that made my skin crawl. I always felt like there was more to her than what she put on display. She severely creeped me out, but I couldn't quite figure out why. I think it had been just over a month that they had been friends, when Cassie came over one day while Sarah was out. She knocked on the door and asked where Sarah was. I explained that she was out for a little bit and that she would be home later, and I encouraged her to call her later on, to see what she was up to. But she completely bypassed my suggestion and asked if she could just wait for her inside. I was reluctant at first, but she was adamant on waiting. We just sat in silence for a while, and then she started to speak. So, Ethan, do you ever think about other women, other than Sarah? I could hear the amusement in her voice. No. Why would I? I was confused and started to feel really uncomfortable. Well, I see the way you look at me sometimes, and I can't help but feel like you like what you see. I remember how her lips curved up into a smile. She was hoping that I would tell her what she wanted to hear. You need to go, right now, I said to her, and as she was getting up, Sarah came in, delighted to see not only me, but her newest friend. I didn't say a word, and in turn, walked into my office and sat there, staring at my black computer screen. Believe me when I say that I wanted to tell Sarah. Every part of me did. But there was a small part that believed that it would be selfish to ruin a friendship that she was so happy about. So I decided that I would ignore her, and I did, successfully. So, let's fast forward another month later. Sarah had come home one day, frazzled and really upset. Upon discussing why she was upset, she mentioned that she felt uncomfortable with Cassie, and that she didn't want to speak, hear, or see her anymore. Upon discussing why she was so upset, she mentioned that she felt uncomfortable with Cassie, and that she didn't want to speak to, hear, or see her anymore. However, she wouldn't tell me why. Being the person that I am, I quickly went onto her phone and sent Cassie a message telling her to leave both Sarah and I alone, and then blocked her on everything. It was a few days later when Sarah finally opened up to me about Cassie. Apparently, she had been asking very personal questions about me. Questions pertaining to my size, what I like in the bed, how many people I've slept with, how often Sarah and I did it, amongst other questions, if you get my drift. Sarah said that she had a feeling that Cassie had some sort of infatuation with me because of how often she spoke about me and brought me up in conversation. However, she's not a very confrontational person, so she never said anything to her. Seeing how upset she was about that, though, I decided not to tell her about the incident prior. I didn't want to make things worse. I just wanted to move on and forget about Cassie entirely. I came home one morning. It was just after 8 a.m. and Sarah had already left for work. It was a long shift and I was beyond exhausted, so I got into the shower and was getting ready for bed when there was a knock at my door. I quickly put on some clothes and answered the door, thinking that it was something from the post. But it wasn't. It had been nearly 6 months since the last incident with Cassie, so seeing her on my doorstep took me by surprise. I almost didn't even recognize her, as she looked so different, more mature than the last time that I'd seen her. I was unsure of what to do, so I just stood there, not knowing if I should tell her to leave or ask her what she wanted. She made my decision for me, though, by walking past me and sitting on my couch. She just started to undress and told me that she knew how I felt about her and that it was okay because she knew Sarah was gone. And she said that she wouldn't keep me up for much longer. The following events happened in somewhat of a blur, but the first thing that came out of my mouth was something along the lines of, "You need help. Get the hell out of my house." Followed by, "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the cops." Now, I've seen girls freak out and get violent. Hell, I lived with an older sister. I know how they can be, but I could visibly see her shake out of anger. I had never seen a woman get that angry before. She let out a screeching noise and then pounced at me, clawing at my face and yelling obscenities at me. I eventually managed to use my weight and hide against her and pinned her down, keeping her sharp nails away from my face. She then started to make sexual comments about being pinned down, talking to me about how my girlfriend wouldn't like that. And with that, my anger peaked. I'm not a violent man, but in the midst of dealing with Cassie, I could barely control myself and wrapped my hands around her neck. She spat in my face and said, "Do it." Deep within me, honestly, I wanted to. I really did. I resented her for the things that she said to Sarah and the things that she said about me. I was angry, the angriest that I've ever been. I squeezed hard, bringing her face closer to mine, and then letting go, her head fell back and hit the floor with a loud thud, and she was out cold. I quickly got up and grabbed the phone, explaining the details to a fellow dispatcher about what had just happened. I then proceeded to call my girlfriend. Once the police arrived on the scene, I described the events that occurred before this one. One of the officers recognized her right away, and upon further discussion, I found out that she was notorious for this kind of behavior. Apparently, I was not the first, and would probably not be the last man she would obsess over and stalk. He told me about the first time that he heard of her being arrested. She was only 17 at the time, and stalked her ex-boyfriend to the point that the parents of the ex placed a restraining order against her. A few years later, she was placed in an institution. She was there for 2 years after she tried to harm a woman for dating the man that she was infatuated with. From what the officer knew, I was her latest victim. I'm not sure whether or not she was institutionalized, but Sarah and I charged her with stalking and also had restraining orders put against her. It's been just over 2.5 years since this happened, and I feel the effects of it to this day, although I haven't seen or heard of her since. I no longer have social media, and Reddit has actually been the social media outlet that I've been on since. My anonymity is very much important to me, which is why I've never told anyone about myself or where I'm from. Experiences like these, they tend to change a person, and I can definitely say that I've changed, and not for the better.